Hi, I'm Anjali McKenzie. I'm a senior product manager at the Graduate Management Admission Council. I've been at GMAC for about 5 years now, and actually I first started off at GMAC on the GMAT prep team. So I worked on the prep team for roughly 4 years and then transitioned over to the GMAT team. So I've been, very heavily involved with the digital transformation for both actually our GMAT prep products as well as the GMAT exam itself. So I'm happy to be here today. So the transition to an online format has been quite the journey. If we rewind back to February and March of 2020, we started to see the coronavirus impacting us across the globe, right? Our test centers were shutting down fairly rapidly in multiple regions, and we very quickly had to stand up an online version of our GMAT exam in order to accommodate the needs of our candidates and schools. So our candidates were coming up against application deadlines, and they were very eager for an online testing option. And on the school side, there was actually immediate and widespread acceptance of the GMAT online score because they were working very closely with candidates to ensure that they could complete their application process. So overall, candidates and schools were very much demanding and eager for this and waiting for it to come. So once it came to market, there was very positive reaction. I think schools and candidates were happy. They were able to continue their testing, get their application process done, et cetera. And as you can imagine, it's been a very evolving process. So we had to adapt quickly to the circumstances provided by the pandemic and get the exam out. And then we actually started to make several improvements over the past year to the exam. And actually, given the continued uncertainty with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're seeing today, as well as what we've heard from the market feedback about the flexibility and choice that the exam offers, we've seen a very consistent demand in the online testing option. And in fact, earlier this year, we actually announced that the exam will be a permanent option for our candidates. So I know a lot of candidates are really excited about that. One limitation is that the original online exam was a slightly different structure, right? So we rolled out the online exam without the AWA section. It also had one optional break instead of two, which is what you see at the test center exam. So there were a few limitations we had with rolling out the online exam early on. And the reason behind that was really to get something out that met the needs of our schools and candidates, sort of prioritize the needs, prioritize what was most important for the overall candidate experience. And then, soon thereafter, we started rolling out additional features. And actually, as I'm sure you know, we've been working on our enhanced GMAT online exam that's coming out on May 20th. So that will roll out soon. And we're really excited about that because it now brings a lot of the features and functionalities in that we've been hearing about that we didn't have in the original version of the exam. So for example, the AWA section, the option to select your section order, which I know is very important to our candidates, the additional breaks. So now you have 2 optional breaks, each at 8 minutes. And the ability to preview your unofficial score at the end of the exam, which is also, very important for our school, for our candidates. And really, we've made these enhancements in order to continue to improve the overall experience and ensure that the online testing experience is in parity with our test center experience, right? So we want candidates to go into the online exam and the test center exam with a very similar experience or as close to the same experience as possible. So we're really working towards that. And of course, we'll continue to make improvements to the online exam and the experience. So it's a couple of things I had mentioned. So the structure with the current one in the market, it does not include the AWA section. It does not include the option to select your section order. So candidates are only given the single section order starting with AWA, then IR, Quant, and Verbal. You don't have the option to preview your unofficial score. So currently candidates kind of have to wait for, the 5 to 7 business days to receive their official score via their MBA.com account. So I think those are just a few of the things that we really improved with the enhanced version of the GMAT exam. So you get that AWA, you get the option to select your section order, you get the preview of the unofficial score at the end of the exam, and then of course the 2 breaks, right? So with the current version or the version that's in market now, you have just 1 optional break. And part of that is because there's 1 less section, there's no AWA section. But I think it's important. This is a long test, and especially now that we've added the AWA section, it's important to ensure that candidates get that that breather, get a couple of breaks, and we have extended those to 8 minutes each. So again, parity with the test center. And then in addition to that, I think it's just, ensuring that we are going through the check-in process and ensuring that we have, security protocols in place, et cetera. So we've had all of this in our current GMAT online exam. But of course, technology changes, tools change. And I think security is just kind of an evolving process here, right? And evolving approaches evolve over time with the security of online testing and high stakes testing. So that's another thing we focused on and continue to improve with each kind of rollout of the online exam. What has changed, I think, between preparing for the test center and preparing online is actually related to preparing for the test day experience and kind of the environment you're in, right? So for example, if you're going to a test center, it's important to kind of read through the policies and the rules for the test center and ensure that you're not bringing any materials in that you can't have, ensure that you get there in time, ensure that you know how to get there. So I know a lot of candidates kind of, do a quick drive to the test center beforehand to make sure they can get there and know the directions and don't run into any traffic, kind of plan out their route sort of thing. So that I think is still very important for the test center. For the online exam, it changes slightly, right? Because you're in control of your own work environment and you have to make sure that it's set up properly for the online exam. And what that means is there can't be any papers in your room, right? Like I have a notepad on my desk, I have pens, I have all sorts of stuff here on my desk. I have food on my desk right now. You can't have any of that stuff during your GMAT online exam, right? So you have to remove all of those things. The only thing you can have is water in a clear container. So, you can have a sip of water. No other electronic devices, right? You actually can't connect to a second monitor with the online exam. So make sure that's disconnected and turned off. You can't have, an iPad or anything like that near you, right? And so the proctor will ask you for the online exam to remove those materials. You should be able, hopefully you remove them in advance, but if not, you should be able to remove them and sort of remove them from the room. There is a 360-degree room scan, so they'll even check sort of surrounding the desk and the workspace and make sure there's no suspicious materials, I suppose, or anything that could sort of conflict with the testing environment. And then, the other thing, honestly, to think about, which occurs in the home and work environment when you're working from home, is kind of make sure there's no disruptions, right? So family, pets, roommates, any of that stuff. I mean, you kind of have to take some more time to prepare the people you're living with or your roommates or whoever, to make sure that, you have a distraction-free environment for the duration of the entire test. So I think when it comes to preparing, it's more about, the differences really are more about your environment and making sure you're prepared for the environment you're going into, right? And then one more thing I will call out for the enhanced GMAT online exam that is starting on May 20th is the need for you to download the secure browser actually in advance of test day. So that's a really critical component. And that is something actually that is new for the enhanced GMAT online version. So there's a secure browser file. It's available on MBA.com and also available on, there's a system check page that you will see if you register for the enhanced version of the GMAT online exam. So it's really important to download that in advance of test day so you're all ready to go and you make sure your computer works. If I give a little bit of background about the GMAT exam, and then we'll touch a little bit on specifically kind of what schools are doing. So the GMAT exam was designed specifically with the business school admission process in mind, right? So the GMAT exam is sort of made for business schools, in conjunction with business schools. And we believe that it not only has value for the schools, but also candidates themselves. So what does that mean exactly? So on the candidate side, it really does measure critical thinking and reasoning skills. And those skills are very much key indicators for how prepared candidates are for a graduate business degree program. So I think on the one hand, it's just so important to actually prepare and take the test because it does measure those skills. And it actually gives candidates themselves kind of an indication of how well prepared they are for business school. And then on the school side of things, it really is a critical evaluation tool for business schools that allows them also to gauge how well a candidate will perform in the program, right? So I think schools are interested in having that information. They want to know how well candidates will do in their programs, right? So it's important for those two reasons. So what we've seen in sort of the feedback we've heard from schools, talking with schools, and kind of understanding the market is that over the past year, the waiving of admissions tests, it really doesn't mean that, or it doesn't indicate that a school has a certain feeling towards the requirement itself, right? So it doesn't indicate that a school is not interested in the requirement. It doesn't indicate that a school doesn't care about the test. But what it's really shown over the last year is that it's acknowledgement of the current uncertainties of the COVID-19 situation and the pandemic's impact on candidates. So, when schools have been waiving tests over the last year, a lot of it is in response to kind of this challenging year, the uncertainties that the pandemic brought, and some of those issues and difficulties that candidates face and the impact that it was having on candidates. And another thing we noticed, if you look at the US News and World Report rankings, so if we looked at top schools, you can see in that they're still actually using admissions tests. And so it kind of varies by type of school as well, right? So top programs are still very much using tests, but there's a lot of data around sort of the type of school and who is using it, who isn't using it. So I think, again, it's kind of just, it varies by school, it varies by region. So it's important for candidates to kind of do their own sort of investigation and understand, what is going on with the specific school or specific program. And just one other thing I'll note is, again, in sort of understanding the data and talking with schools, over the past year, we've actually seen a greater demand for graduate management education. So that's actually up globally. And we've found that schools have an even greater need to, objectively evaluate the talent that's coming in. So for example, over the past year, business schools around the world have actually seen record application volumes. So those have been increasing. And if you actually kind of couple that with, there's a whole number of candidates that deferred starting their program last year. So we'll have this really big crowded applicant pool at this time, because for people that deferred, as well as kind of just the numbers rising, it creates an even bigger applicant pool. So we really believe that a candidate's GMAT score and actually the commitment demonstrated when preparing for the GMAT exam will help a candidate kind of stand out among the crowd, right? So among that crowded applicant pool, the GMAT exam is just kind of another element and a little bit of that step up that a candidate can show within their application.